When the compass spins and points every way, we're not lost, we're just making the day. And no straight lines, it's a wavy design. The wonky compass says we're doing just fine.
Hello and welcome to the Wonky Compass, the podcast where we embrace the idea that life is not a straight path, and that's okay. It's a podcast about exploring neurodiversity, I guess experiencing as well, brought to you by Lucas Skill Builders Academy. I'm your host, Philip Viljoen, and with me again are Cherie and Ashley Heine. How are you guys?
Hello.
Again.
What did we say in the last episode? That third time is then we what?
Third time's the charm?
Yeah, no, we said something else.
What we're official podcasters after the first.
Well, maybe in this one there won't be any weird sounds and we'll sound great and everybody can hear us. So
It'll be like episode 1.
Oh yeah, there we go. This is the one that we'll actually share with a lot of people. So what have you guys been up to?
My brain feels very tired today. We had so we've got a little toddler, Sadie. She's just over 2 years, 2 months, and last night she decided to be awake from 12 in the morning to a good 3 o'clock in the morning. So it, I don't know if maybe she's just preparing us for when number 2 comes. You know what the sleepless nights we're gonna be.
You're already a lack of sleep gremlin if you don't get her.
Yeah. So but other than that, other than the sleepless night last night, we've been fine, busy.
The usual,
Yeah, lots of little events happening.
It's been cold, so that's not been great.
Yeah, the weather has definitely also
You don't
affected.
like winter?
I don't like winter. No.
Okay.
I feel like I'm 30 kgs heavier wearing like 5 jerseys.
Oh, I see.
Not great.
Yeah.
I like winter. I think it's nice.
No, I'm also not a winter person.
Oh, really? Okay.
Shorts, slops, t-shirt.
Oh, really? That's where you live at?
Comfy.
But as somebody once described it to me, you can do something about cold, but you can't do anything about heat.
That is true.
In a way.
That is true. But I'm more a summer
But
person.
to be fair, even if you got 4 jerseys on, you're not warm. You still like...
No, but that's just you.
I think that's just you.
Yeah, yesterday
Stinking
everyone
ticked.
was kitted.
Yeah.
Like they were about to hike up.
Yeah, us as South Africans aren't we're not used to this. We're not used to this type of cold.
And people are still like uncomfortable.
Yeah. But no, it's been fine. Cold, busy. Been busy with a lot of things on the support and care centre side. Towards the end of the month, it's always quite busy when it comes to getting the newsletter out. And we had our parents' evening last week Thursday, so a lot of prep for that. So the last week and the first week of the month are always a bit busy admin wise. But otherwise fine. And you, Philip?
Sick. I've been sick for a week or so. It's been terrible, so if there's a cough every now and then, I'll edit it out. But that's not been pleasant. Kids have been okay. We were talking about how the kids like sick for like a day, has fever for like 3 hours, you give medicine, and then they're running around, bit of a cough and a snotty nose, and they're fine, and we get like
A week.
completely slaughtered. The virus just like knocks us down for a week.
We're old
They're
and
so
frail
resilient. Kids are very resilient. We were also, even yesterday with the cold, Sadie, she just wanted to play at the bottom of the playground, and the wind was blowing, it was freezing, and then Ash said to her, come, let's go up, to the top, it's very cold, and she just said, but I've got a jacket on, so.
Yes, it's facts, but I've got to wear a jacket. No, my 4-year-old Rowan is also, sometimes I have to just look at him and look what kind of mood he's in the morning and decide is how cold he's going to be worth the fight I'm about to have with him,
Choose your battles.
Exactly. And then I'm dropping him off at school, and I'm like looking at all the other kids in like huge puffy jackets and beanies, and he's in like one jersey, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm a bad dad, it's okay, off you go. Here's an extra jacket in your bag, let the teacher know.
No, sometimes you just have to pick the fight.
Yeah. Ashley, you've got a topic that you want to talk about a little bit. Tell us about that.
So my topic, or I suppose question, if you want to frame it that way, is: does society recognize special needs in terms of acceptance of it and awareness of it more now than it did 5 or 10 years ago, I suppose, in kind of all aspects of life? So I guess my take on it to start is, I think awareness-wise, yes, it's improved a lot. But, you know, in terms of the education side of it and kind of recognition of it, just because I think the internet has helped with it a lot as well. People have access to it and information on it. I think social media has played a big part in terms of neurodiverse individuals, I guess, having the opportunity to express themselves on social media, right? And be themselves, and, you know, in terms of Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and so I think people are a lot more exposed to it. I think in terms of acceptance of it, maybe that's slightly different, especially, I guess, in like the employment corporate world, you know, maybe in the healthcare sector as well, and maybe in the education sector. I think it's still catered way more towards neurotypical outcomes and neurotypical procedures and functionality as opposed to neurodiverse. So I think awareness is better, but acceptance in those kind of aspects is maybe still not great. You know, maybe, for example, an autistic kid could be exceptional at coding or something in IT, and he can perform his job like at a higher level than maybe a neurotypical person, but he can't sit in a meeting for half an hour or communicate properly, or so that way he maybe doesn't fit in, but he could actually perform the job. So that's still catered towards the neurotypical way of or a neurotypical outcome as opposed to a neurodiverse.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's a good question. I think I agree there. Awareness is definitely more. Acceptance, more to an extent. And I think if you're looking at internationally, you know, touching on social media, TikTok, I'll admit I like doom scrolling a little bit on TikTok.
Is that what they call it now?
Doom scrolling is just when you're on YouTube, you doom scroll as well.
Okay.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, off of topic. But I definitely see a lot more awareness. I see a lot more acceptance. But I think there's still ways to go. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, having the Skill Builders Academy, is opening up a way, but also making a safe space for them to be able to perform a job that they're really, really good at, learn a skill that they're really passionate about, and then also, you know, that the expectancies and the outcomes would be in line with what our neurodiverse young adults and teens can do. I do think, you know, going back to where I said there's still a long ways to go. I think in corporate, I agree. I think even just in society, you know, in social areas in itself, there could be a bit more understanding, a bit more acceptance, a bit more awareness. It's nice that there's so much information available. It's nice that we can go read up and we can listen to neurodiverse individuals speaking about their experiences on social media, trying to understand a bit more of what they do go through and how they do experience the world and the challenges that they face, but also the success stories they have. I think there should be more space for neurodiverse individuals when it comes to neurotypical environments, like in a mall. Yes, we've got access. Accessibility is easier, and there'll be, you know, access to for wheelchair, or easier wheelchair access and things like that. But there's still a lack of education when it comes to how to deal with a neurodiverse person in a shop. May it be a grocery shopping or a mall in itself, and just maybe opening up more opportunities to teach staff, to teach others about it. We can't necessarily always change people's responses to that. not everybody has the education or the understanding
that
or the
helps, right.
awareness or the exposure to understand it better. So I think that's what's happening a lot, is a lot of these awareness drives of educating society on what it means to be autistic, what it means to have cerebral palsy, what it means to have Down syndrome, and how they still are individuals, but they are not necessarily going to respond to a question the way you think they're going to respond, or interact the way that you think that they are going to interact. So a lot of education and awareness still needs to go out there to help prepare society as a whole, I think.
So I've got a story that one of my clients kind of went through, who's here at the Skill Builders Academy. And what happened with him is we got him into a job that he really enjoyed, right? It was kind of his fixation, it was his interest, he was very good at it, he liked being there, he was around the machines that he liked. And it was an environment in which he potentially could do really well. And he was there for about 3 years, starting off as a kind of just a friendly, educative process. And then we checked, can we get him to a point where he can become a somewhat productive member of this workshop, right? And eventually we realized that he wasn't at that stage capable of doing that. And the reason wasn't because there was discrimination happening against him, right? The people that were there were very understanding. They were very, I was educating them on a kind of weekly basis about why he behaves the way he does, how his brain works, how he's different, that sort of thing. And they took that all in, and they were very accepting, and they wanted to be part of his kind of his life and his educational process. But it's almost like they were stuck in a situation where they had to choose between their business being successful and him, right? Because it took so much energy from their side to just get to a, how can I put it, to have him there when their energy was actually focused on just making enough money to keep the business going, right? And that's kind of why he's here now at the Skill Building Academy, because we realized that he lacks certain basic understandings or certain basic abilities or common sense things that come easy to us, which he just can't implement in the moment. Maybe he knows it academically, but just misses little things like, if I were to give an example, like to not come half an hour early, or like when the place isn't even open yet. No, but I was on time. Why is it bad that I was early? Well, it's because you were sitting outside in the cold or whatever, and you can't be like just hanging out in front of the shop in the middle of the morning or something like that, right? So that to me is a good example of, I think, a place where we are in the society of, we're growing towards acceptance, right? There's a lot of education happening out there. Lots of people are working very hard in making the neurodiversity movement an accepting and positive kind of movement. But there's still kind of the societal problem, which I think there's practical issues around it, which are very hard to overcome. But I also think things are just not set up in a way to support a lot of these neurodiverse people.
And I think that goes hand in hand with the big push for inclusivity in mainstream schools. Is the idea of it is amazing, and it can work, but are we ready for it to work? I don't think so yet. There still needs, I attended a special ed conference probably about a year ago, and there were people there from departments, and a lot of discussions on how to implement inclusion in your mainstream environment, mainstream schools, remedial schools, and it all looks beautiful. It's gorgeous on paper.
Sounds amazing.
But it's we still have a long ways to go on just the and I might be veering off more like on an educational side here, but teachers in mainstream schools are already under pressure. They have a lot of students that they are responsible for, and they're not necessarily getting the support or the training or what is needed to include a neurodiverse student in their classroom. The classroom size might be too big, the resources might not be enough, the training is maybe not in place. So it can work, we can be inclusive, but the right steps need to be followed to actually get to that point. And I also don't like the fact of, yes, a school or a center is inclusive, but all neurodiverse students are in one class.
Yeah,
Kind
not
of,
very inclusive.
they actually saw, it was such a nice picture that was actually shown at the conference, where it showed you what is inclusion, what do we want inclusion to look like, and it was like in a little circle, and it was all a mixture that would be, say, your class, and that would be the mixture of your neurodiverse students and your neurotypical students all together. But then there was, of kind of what the reality is right now, I think in not just South Africa, but I think in other countries as well, that this is our school, we are inclusive, but here's our neurotypical classes and here's our neurodiverse class, or we're all together in one room, in one little circle, but neurodiverse kind of towards one end and neurotypical on one end. So
does that come down to life because how the schools are structured wouldn't work, or does it purely come down to support from government in terms of funding? So like if you had government employed facilitator / assistant paid by government, which the parents don't have to pay for, it's in the government budget towards neurodiversity or whatever you want to call it, and they provided an assistant for every single kid that is integrated into a mainstream school, would that make a difference? Like would the school then be able to accommodate neurodiverse kids, or is it purely the structure of the school that doesn't work, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it's 100% a combination of both. 100% a combination.
But I suppose it comes down to funding, right? If they could provide an assistant, education for the staff, education for the assistant, the right resources, then it could potentially work.
Yes, 100%.
There isn't that.
Yeah, 100%. Like
Probably
I said,
will never be that.
It looks beautiful on paper.
Yeah.
And the idea is right, and the structures that they want to follow are right, but it just hasn't been put in practice yet. There's still a lot of gaps that need to be filled.
It needs to be backed by money, unfortunately.
Money and education.
As most things do.
Yeah, money is the big problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although one of the experiences I had, because for a long time I was working with, part of my job was to get kids that were in therapy and not in a mainstream school to get them mainstreamed, right? Which for some kids were not the correct choice, but for some it was, it could work out really well to at least have them in a mainstream school for a few years at the very least, so they can kind of experience that and learn from more typical peers and that sort of thing, or neurotypical peers, I should say. Then I found kind of two types of schools doing that. The one school you went to, and my job was to kind of sell to them this idea of, let's get this kid in, we'll be there to support you, I'll facilitate, this is why it's a good idea. So I really had to kind of get that kid, no school was kind of sold on it to start off with. And some of the schools I went to, and they would meet with me, and I could just see that they were not going for this. And their excuse was always that they're not trained for this. They can't do it. It's going to disrupt the other kids. Yeah. Which personally I think aren't great excuses, because I was there to present them the training, to help them with that inclusion.
Almost
and that sort of thing.
Like an easy way out.
Exactly. But for whatever reason, they did not want to be part of that diversity movement, right? And then I had other schools that were very keen on diversity. And the one particular school was amazing. They had a policy that every class had to have 2 neurodiverse or special needs person in the class. That's right? Amazing. In a class of like 20, right? And that school was great, but what they needed was, they also just didn't know what to do. So that's where we stepped in and we helped and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the difference between the acceptance and the structure.
Yeah.
Yes.
But both of these schools were private schools, the two that I'm thinking of. And every school I went to was a private school. There weren't any public schools that had the money to pay me for that, right?
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. And my experience of the little bit of experience I do have with public schools is they would have special needs kids in that class because the kid doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
And the teachers would just kind of do the best they can. And sometimes the best they could do was kind of like just to give them something and leave them in the corner and work with the other kids. And
Yeah.
not really that teacher's fault, you
Yeah.
know, in that
Yeah,
situation.
limited resources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also big classroom sizes.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a
Not
large
paid
number,
enough, too many kids.
large number of students in
Yeah.
a class. Yeah, interesting. That was a nice, interesting question.
The other kind of direction I wanted to come to your question from is also more from the acceptance point of view, right? And it's strange the kind of time that we live in, because even though the world seems to be moving towards accepting diversity more and more, there's a huge amount of pushback on this, where the kind of idea of accepting diversity is considered a bad thing. And there's a certain group of people, America is one great example where they're having this huge divide where accepting
Especially
diversity is considered bad. And there's one of their political parties refuses to accept diversity and is kind of like pushing that away. And when I mean diversity, we're talking about racial diversity, neurodiversity, and gender diversity, right? It all gets kind of put in the same bag because it's all minorities that we're dealing with and people that are easily victimized. So as much as I think there is progression, we're in a progressive society moving towards more acceptance, we're seeing a lot of pushback these days, which is so worrying, at least to me.
I think what's sad in that, or what's difficult in that, is that it's all just kind of pushed into one little circle,
Yeah.
and it creates problems because it creates almost like an example, especially if it's coming from a first world country. It sets an example, and do people know, do others from other countries or the people there, do they have the education, or do they think for themselves, or do they just follow that example of, okay, well, this is how people are doing things now and this is just how we should do it. So it's problematic, but I believe the more pushback they also receive for it, and people standing up for themselves and not necessarily being scared, or I think it's always scary if you know that if I push back I'm going to be victimized, and it's going to count against me from a work perspective or a societal perspective. But I think the more we just continue to push that, the narrative of acceptance and understanding, we'll keep going forward. But it is problematic at the moment.
I think that's what makes it like such a complicated topic, is because it depends how you look at it. Like from a societal perspective, are neurodiverse people being accepted more? Yes, probably. But then like if you, like to my point with there's a difference between holding down a job and being accepted in society, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you draw the line? And maybe it's very case specific. It's not a black and white thing. It's like if you take the healthcare sector, for example, and we say someone's having heart surgery, and maybe you have a neurodiverse person who's exceptionally talented at actually performing the surgery but can't focus for maybe more than an hour, and the surgery is 2 hours.
Reminds me of The Good Doctor.
Yeah, but it's like then where do you draw the line there? Because it's like, do you want a surgeon that can focus for 2 hours and maybe doesn't make a mistake, as opposed to the neurodiverse person who's exceptionally talented, but then there's a limitation on how long their surgeries can be or how long they can focus, or so that's always going to be the debate, like to your example about where do you draw the line on what's exclusion or inclusion, or it's so hard.
I think that it's less of a debate than what some people would like us to think, right? Because if you look at the two extreme points of the argument, one side says no to any kind of inclusion, right? it's all bad. It's all giving handouts. You're being too empathetic. That's one extreme side of the argument. And the other extreme side of it is everything has to be inclusion. You must be accepting. You can't ever discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to get the job and you have to be accepted and you can't be fired, that sort of thing.
Which is also not reality.
Yeah. So these are two very extreme sides of the argument. We as a society or as a civilization, for most of our history, has fallen on the side of the kind of not inclusion, the kind of pushing away the other, the refusing to accept that diversity, and now we are pushing in the other direction, and where the balance is going to fall is kind of we'll know in the future. Our children will know where we need to be, but I'd still think it's correct to push towards diversity, to push towards inclusion. And figure it out as we go, but not to kind of the argument should not be, well, we don't know where the line is, so we shouldn't even try. I think that is an excuse to just keeping the status quo and keeping power.
I think either extremes in anything is going to be bad.
You need to find a good midline.
And I think that poses the question: where does society as a whole, as an average, stand? More to the one side, more to the other side, or more in the middle? I feel like my belief is that a lot of us are very much in the middle.
I think so. An interesting thing that I was kind of reading about the other day or listening to was how people tend to always see themselves in the middle when it comes to kind of like political talks and that sort of thing, right? My impression of society is that we are leaning towards liberalism and diversity as a kind of planet for the most part, but that there's a lot of pushback against that too. So, and I kind of agree with that, with moving towards a bit more liberalism and that sort of thing. I think that's the correct way to go, especially for the people that we care about in the neurodiversity movement. That's we need that, right? Being a little bit more accepting is the path to take.
Can't hurt, right?
Yes. Don't go like all the way to extremes. Think about what you're saying, right? But don't we shouldn't just accept the kind of power structures as they are.
Well, Alice and everything. No, I agree on that.
Did that answer your question? Was that a good?
No, let's retake.
Okay, shall we just go through all of that again?
Let's do it again.
Well,
no. Yeah, I think that covers it. I think it can also be a never-ending back and forth.
Absolutely,
you can go into so many things.
But I think we touched on some of the key components there. Hopefully, we'll get 100%. A little bit of feedback as we talk to people that have listened to this, and maybe an email or two that we can then touch on. If there's
maybe a side that they want us to go a little bit deeper into, or maybe a question that they might have that's opposite to our question.
Or
reach out.
Get somebody, interview somebody that maybe has a deeper insight into this topic as well. So we're going to go to a interview that I recorded with Ethan Sean right now, who's our first neurodiverse person on the podcast. So very important that we have our very first interview being a neurodiverse person, and hopefully we'll have a lot more in future.
Awesome.
Today, sitting here with me in the studio is Ethan Sean. Ethan, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Thank you for joining me.
No problem.
So, you actually sent us our first end snippet.
Yes,
you gave me the idea for the end snippet and actually generated the whole idea that at the end of every episode, I'll be quoting a different person that sent something in to me. So, you were the first one. And you can keep sending me more ideas, and every episode's going to have a new ending. Yeah.
Cool.
How do you feel about your contribution to the podcast?
Oh, it feels great. Yeah. I know that I have a creative mind, and I like to use it for good.
Awesome. All right. So, what do we have you here today? let me ask you the most important question first, and then we can answer that, is, are you neurodivergent?
Yes, I am. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, and I'm dyslexic, even though I was only diagnosed when I was 18, so I can read well despite my dyslexia.
So we have you on today because you are neurodivergent, definitely.
Yes.
You're our first neurodivergent person on the podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's such an honor.
So you say you were diagnosed when you were 18, right?
Well, with dyslexia, yeah.
With dyslexia. When did you receive your other diagnosis?
My autistic diagnosis I got when I was like 2 years old.
Ah, okay, so early on.
Yeah, so I basically, all my life that I can remember, I've known that I was autistic.
All right.
And yeah, it's been a seesaw ride, if you will, but I've learned to cope with it.
So your parents decided to tell you early on.
Oh, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing in my household is that we're always honest with each other.
I see, yeah. I've met a few parents here and there who have decided not to tell their children that they're autistic and maybe only tell them when they're a little bit older. Do you think that, I think that's their decision to make,
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Do you think that would have worked in your household, just out of interest?
I don't think so, because my parents and we see a disability like this not as a disability. We just think of it as a different kind of ability. And we work with it, and it's made me the person I am today.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
You got diagnosed at 2 with autism. What was your other diagnosis again?
ADHD, but I don't remember when that was, but I think it was a given with my autistic diagnosis.
They do seem to go hand in hand quite often,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, and just talk about what you're comfortable with discussing here. How was it growing up with these diagnoses, knowing that you're maybe a bit different than most of the kids in the class? Tell us more about that.
It was a little hard, but it was mainly because I would get mocked for some of my differences. Like even at church, I got mocked for some of my differences, and it really wasn't good for me. But I eventually looked at my differences and just saw them as like a good difference. Like I can be an independent person in terms of who I am. Like I can be a unique version of a human being as far as Ethan John Parker can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old are you now?
I'm 26.
26. So you grew up, when were you in school? The 2000s, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So even still, I mean, I can kind of imagine now, I was in school in the 90s, and that's before we kind of knew about neurodivergence and that sort of thing. And you being a little bit different than the other kids, they still got like mocked and stuff, which is horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
But do you think that's getting better in schools?
Yes, well, at least I hope so. Like, the worst part is that the school I went to was a school for gifted children, and a lot of the people there weren't gifted in that sense, but they still made fun of people like me.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Yeah, I think it's important for parents, especially parents who have neurotypical kids, to teach them about neurodiversity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Currently, you and I, we know each other. Well, we've met each other when you were at school, but we know each other through the social club that we're doing. This is the social club for neurodivergent adults, right? Yes. We have a great time. We play lots of games.
Yeah, especially Uno.
We play a lot of Uno. That's true. I feel like certain members of our social club will be quite upset if we don't do a ritualistic Uno which is probably a little bit of his eccentricities, right? He's neurodivergent.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's become like a tradition to do Uno at every social.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have to play at least one game of Uno, otherwise it's not a social, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, how have you been finding this now that you're an adult? You accept that you're neurodivergent, you label yourself as autistic. How are you finding socialization as an adult?
It's difficult when I do it with when I socialize with people who don't necessarily understand it. Like, for a while, I didn't understand boundaries in personal space. So if I spoke to someone, I would always be like on top of them because I didn't know if they could hear me or not, or understand me.
So you were too close to them.
Yeah, and I was part of this group, an amateur production theatre where I was in a play, and I was eventually asked to leave because of it. But instead of looking at it as a bad thing, I saw it as a wake-up call. So I decided to go into therapy with a specialist who deals with people, mainly adults, who are neurodivergent, and he gave me like incredible tips and skills that I could use. Like if I make someone uncomfortable, I don't try and make the situation better by talking and apologizing to them. I just give them space. I can say hello to them if I see them, but I don't like speak to them a lot. And if I'm talking to someone, I don't have to be on top of them. Like I can be at a good arm's length and they can still understand me. I'm still working on some of it, but I've gotten a lot better at it. Like it's been a while since I've made someone uncomfortable like that, and at least I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're at the social groups. I see you about once a week or so.
Yeah.
And within, that's a neurodivergent social group where everybody's very accepting of each other. But I don't think recently I've seen you approach or make anybody uncomfortable in that sense. You've kind of stuck to those social rules a little bit. But I can imagine that's hard to do.
Oh yes, it is. It's very hard. Yeah, because it's how I grew up knowing how to speak to people. Even though it's not the right way, it's just what I knew.
Do you think that if you had been taught that lesson earlier in life, like maybe staying arm's reach away from somebody when talking to them, would that have worked when you were younger?
Yeah, I think it would have. It's just I don't know why it took so long for me to finally realize that what I'm doing is wrong. But life is all about learning, and if I'm willing to learn from my mistakes, it just shows that I'm growing.
Yeah. And once again, if you're feeling uncomfortable, just tell me you don't want to talk about it anymore, but I'm going to go in a little bit deeper, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So you said that it took you a while to learn that that's wrong.
Yes, like a few years.
Do you really think that your behavior of, like, let's take the example of talking too close to somebody, do you think that's wrong?
I don't think it's wrong, but it's the consistency. If I do it, like, if I'm on top of them, if I'm so close to them and like talking to them for like a few long minutes and they could get uncomfortable because they could be claustrophobic and might be in a corner. They might feel backed into a corner. It's not always wrong, but if they're uncomfortable with it, they just have to speak up.
Yeah, okay. I guess the other question I have for you then is, don't you think it's, and I'm asking you difficult questions here, don't you think it's the other person's responsibility to also communicate with you? Because you didn't know, right?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know that standing over somebody and talking to them was making people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Did you pick up any of the cues that people were giving you that they were uncomfortable?
I did pick up something that this one person looked uncomfortable, but I didn't know what it was. But eventually someone came up to me and they told me that I need to back off, but I still didn't know fully how to back off. So I eventually was asked to leave that group.
I see. And so when somebody told you, back off, this is uncomfortable, then you tried to do that.
Yeah, but instead of backing off, I just tried to make it better by explaining myself.
I see.
And saying I'm sorry when all I had to do was just give them space.
Like, from my perspective, and you tell me if I'm wrong, right? Because this is your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you did anything wrong, right? It sounds to me like you were put in a situation where you didn't have the tools you needed to be successful.
Exactly.
You're autistic, which means that those social skills are difficult for you to access and understand.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, but I do feel kind of responsible because, let's face it, I am. Because if I had known better, if I could go back in time and learn the skills first before joining that group, I would have done that.
Sure, because then you had a better chance to be friends with that group as well, right?
Yeah, and also those people were very nice. They welcomed me in, but towards the end, I just think a lot of them were uncomfortable with me.
Yeah, and it does really sound like that was a misconnection between the autistic brain and the typical brain,
Yeah.
right? Where nobody really understood what was happening,
Yeah.
but nobody really had ill intent either.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, except for some people, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure because those people are very nice. It's just I did overstep my boundaries a bit, and I just wish that they would have told me that, can you please just give me space, and the person themselves, I mean. And I just wish that I knew how to do it.
So if we were to make a new situation, taking you away from that situation a bit, a new situation in which you're making some neurotypical friends, and you tell those friends, hey, listen, I don't understand certain social cues. If I make you feel uncomfortable, please tell me.
Yeah.
Do you think that would turn out better?
Yes, I do.
All right. Is that what you're doing these days?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm trying to make myself aware of what the skills that I know and should know, and use them.
All right. Yeah, it's a difficult thing because it's that conflict between what society owes you and what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, but if I do meet someone new, I'll just say that I do struggle with boundaries and personal space, and if I make you uncomfortable in any way, you can just tell me and I'll back off.
Cool. Let's go on to a lighter topic, shall we?
Yeah.
Tell me, what sort of things do you like to do?
I like watching football, and by football I mean soccer, for those of you who think I might be American because of my accent.
And trust me, I only say soccer around Ethan to upset him.
Yes, and it's frustrating, but funny at the same time.
Just like you, just like the jokes you make.
Yes. So I'm a football fan / soccer, and I used to do art, but I haven't drawn in a while because I've sort of lost my passion for that. And I'm a good writer. I can write short stories very well, despite being dyslexic.
Amazing. And you do your acting too, right?
Yes.
So these are, before we came and recorded, you said that these were passions that you found.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So acting, when I was 14 or 15, I started getting into like superhero movies, and I saw the Avengers movie for the first time, and I was like, I want to be one of those actors. I want to be in there, like one of the characters. And it's been a dream that I don't know if it'll come true, but if it does, that will be epic. But also, acting is hard, where you have to have the right look and the right physicality.
Yeah.
But with writing, it's a lot easier because I just take what I feel and write it down, and then make a story out of it. And my main story is about a werewolf who's not mocked, he's an outcast because he's different, but then he ends up saving the day in this little village.
Awesome. That sounds cool. How much have you written on that?
Quite a bit, except it's not really in the same story. It's just all over the place.
Oh, so it's sort of different perspectives from different people. That's cool, though. That's a good way of writing.
Yeah.
It makes it interesting.
Yeah, and I also write poems. Like I do poetry, and there's one poem I wrote when I was very down in life. And that poem made me want to continue being a good person and trying to make a difference when all I wanted to do was give up.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm so glad that poetry brought you solace, that made you feel better.
Yeah, because if there's ever someone in a position like me who just feels like giving up, I want them to read that poem and see that they can overcome anything.
So maybe, do you want to put that poem online and we can share it in the show notes for this episode?
Sure.
Then anybody who does listen to this episode and feels like that could go read that poem.
Yeah.
What other advice do you have to... So let me backtrack a little bit. Depression, anxiety, not feeling worthwhile, these are all things that go with being neurodivergent, right? They're very correlated. What advice do you have to people that are in your position, that are neurodivergent and feeling those emotions, feeling like that?
All I have to say is this. You are worth more than what people say, and your neurodiversity is not a disability. It's just a different type of ability that you have to explore.
Very nice. I like that. Yeah. That could have been a great end show quote that we should have put. Maybe we'll put it in anyway in a future quote.
Yeah, maybe.
Another thing that you kind of mentioned before we came to record is I asked you whether you wanted to talk a little bit about the modern world and politics and that sort of thing and what it's like being neurodivergent here. And you said, heck no. Why not?
Well, I just look at the world and I see that politics is the main source of bad going on in the world, like Donald Trump, for example. The things he says and does, it freaks me, and that's why I don't like listening to politics, because the less I know, in my opinion, the less I know about what's going wrong in the world, the better it is for my health.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Like I'll read the news and then for a week or two I'll stop because it's like just too much.
I mean, we've also got our own problems here in South Africa, but it's better the devil we know than the devil we don't know.
Fair enough. Do you think that South Africa is like, just a kind of general idea answer if you want to, but do you think South Africa is a more accepting place than other places in the world?
I would say it is. Yeah, in my opinion it is, because, I mean, I've met so many nice people of all kinds, large people of diverse people here in South Africa. And a lot of them, like I would say 85% of them that I've met are so nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
But the other 15% do make it seem very bad, but I just have to look at the majority of the good.
Yes.
And that's how I get by in life.
All right. What else do you want to tell us about your experiences?
I once wanted to sit with my friends at school, and they were all girls, because and back in primary school I felt more comfortable around the girls there than the boys, because the boys used to torture me. And this one girl said, no, we just want the girls to be here, so can you please go eat by the boys? And I said, okay. So I left. I turned around, there were a whole lot of boys there from my class with the girls, and I was like, why? You're letting them sit there, but you're not letting me. Then the same girl who asked me to leave said, yeah, but they're just sitting there. We asked you to leave and you were kind enough to say okay. And I didn't think of this at the time, but I could have said, then why don't you ask them to leave?
So that was pretty unfair.
Yes, it was.
And that's something that sticks with you even till today.
Well, it doesn't stick with me, but I do think back on it a little bit and think that maybe I should have stood up for myself.
Yeah, and it's hard to know what would happen if you did, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think that's again that situation of maybe those kids should have had a little bit. I mean, they're children, right? Yeah. Children aren't the smartest people on the planet, but maybe, if we had a society that presented a bit more understanding, their reactions would have been a bit different. Yeah. It is interesting that you say that you like to hang out with the girls more than the boys. I see that a lot.
Yeah, it's just I'm more comfortable around girls for some reason than I am with some guys.
Girls tend to be, like in my experience, when I'm working with children, autistic children, I find that they almost always prefer hanging out with girls.
Yeah.
And it's probably to do with girls tend to be a little bit more nurturing, a bit more accepting, and the boys tend to be a little bit rougher. And so I guess the sensory issues can also be a big deal when you've got loud boys.
Yeah.
Excuse me, girls are a little bit softer.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. All right, Ethan, thank you. That was a lot. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. I hope you join us again sometime on this podcast.
I would love to.
That's all we have for you today. We are putting away the compass until next time the journey calls. Unfortunately, I still haven't come up with a good outro. But this time, I have my other friend JJ, who has given me a good outro. And his advice to everybody listening is you got to clean and wash yourself every day.
Preferably.
That's a good one.
So it is, right? The question I asked him, what does he think everybody needs to hear? Everybody needs to know. And that was his advice, is clean yourself and wash yourself every day.
Yeah, that is good advice.
Great advice.
Nice, JJ.
All right, Cherie, Ashley, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Philip.
If you, the listener, would like to help me with my outro woes, please email your suggestions to thewonkycompass@gmail.com. The email address will be in the show notes. You can also email any comments you have on our content or any suggestions for topics you would like us to talk about. We're eager to engage with our audience, and thank you for listening.
just had.
Which one?
It was in Afrikaans, the little meme, and you were like, "Yo, that's just you can't say it any other way or read it any other way, but in Afrikaans." Remember? Let me not read the inappropriate ones.
Yeah, I know I've sent you a few inappropriate things. I don't know which one you're talking about.
Oh no, there was an Afrikaans meme. Yes, yeah. At that community forum.
Oh, yo, that was so funny.
So I'll show you.
Alright. Ken iemand die persoon, I've seen this, ken iemand die persoon, hy klim elke nou en dan oor my muur en dan kak hy in my tuin. Al my klibias is besig om te vrek.
That's just how it's written.
But don't you like, you can't say it better. You can't say it in a, like in a better English way. Like there's just a way of like.
Sometimes Afrikaans it just sounds like extremely to the point, like just forward.
I told my wife that Afrikaans is actually a very poetic language. Which it is, but she kind of gave me this look of what, and I get that because it's almost like I don't know, it's a beautiful hammer, Afrikaans, a beautifully engraved hammer that's just, but jou gaan stik in bliksem.
Exactly. But there's just certain things, like certain like of your idioms and just your sayings that are just, they're just gold.
They are
You
gold.
just can't,
There's some really golden
moments.
Yeah, golden moments, and then some really like extra cheesy moments. You know, with
Not so many funny outros this time.
not so
No,
many.
I think I'm just mom tired.
Everyone's a little bit.
Okay, maybe add, I don't know if you recorded there in the beginning about your hat.
Yeah, I basically, the
That
moment
might
the
be
door
funny.
closes, I start recording so I can catch some funny things on the way.
Maybe your, what is it called again? Trompie.
Don't be.
Afrikaans
Let me see
Trump.
what Trompie.